TFSA is just what it sounds like. It's a tax-free savings account. It is a place where you put your money and it grows tax-free. Okay? Now here's the thing, an RRSP grows tax-free as well. So I just want to talk about what that tax-free piece means. When you put your money in an account, and let's say you got $1, and you've got a fabulous investment, and it returns 10%. You now have $1.10 in that account. And then the next time it rolls over, you're going to earn 10% on the $1.10. That's the magic of compounding. Exactly, right? So it just goes and goes and goes and goes. But the reason why that tax-free thing matters is because there's no tax taken off while it's in the vehicle. It just grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. So that is actually very, very powerful. And I think people need to understand that both an RRSP and a tax-free savings account have that. There's a whole bunch of differences, we'll get into it, but basically a tax-free savings account, it has more flexibility, which we'll get into. You can contribute $5,500 a year into it, as you mentioned, and that has changed. Every year, if you're 18 years and older, off you go. An RRSP is a little different in that you can contribute 18% of what you earned last year. And so those are up to a maximum of just over $24,000. Those are the basics. They're both tools for saving. So I just want to get out, if you're doing one or both or either one, it's good. It's not don't freak out if you're doing one versus the other. The fact you're saving for your retirement is good. So that's just the basics.
Okay, but what do I do now? I've got my $100 in there. I thought it would just be there growing, but now you're telling me I got to do something with that money.
So it's kind of like you've bought a property and now you got to put a house on it. I guess to put a simple metaphor, right? So you've got a place to put it, but you actually have to decide what you're going to do with your money. So once the money is in the TFSA, then you actually have to decide, well, I'm going to put it into bonds. Am I going to put it into a high-interest savings account, which is an option? Am I going to buy stocks with it? Am I going to buy different things? So that's almost a secondary discussion that you want to get into, but I would say the first point is to get it in there to start with.
And one of the differences is the money going in. In one of them, it's not taxed, and in one of them it is, which is also important to have both, I think. Would you not agree, Kim?
It does. And so I have a request of Kate. If I start saying something you don't understand me, you got to raise your hand and go, nope.
Oh, I will.
Stop. I know.
Okay, I will.
Okay, and I know you're not shy.
I'm the money dummy.
Okay. So this is the thing, is that they're both tax advantaged. So they both grow tax-free inside this. But the question is, do you pay the taxes before, or do you pay the taxes after? Really simply, so that's it. So with an RRSP, the great part about an RRSP that we love is you get this great tax deduction if you contribute to your RRSP in the year you earn the income, or in the next 60 days of the calendar year. You own your tax return, you talk about what you actually contributed, and you get this delicious tax deduction, which for a lot of people means either a tax refund or substantially reducing the tax they pay. So that's kind of like that instant gratification. I put it in, I get it back, I feel good, and there we go. The mechanics of that, again, I don't want to dive into this too much, is that you are actually what they're calling putting before tax dollars into the RRSP, right? So what you're doing is the government is saying, we realize that you've been paying tax all year, so you're going to put that money, you're going to put it into the account, but we're actually going to give you the refund on the money you put in, okay? So you didn't actually pay tax on those dollars then. It's going to accumulate tax-free, but here's the thing. When you take the money out, that's when you pay the tax, okay?
And you'll pay income tax, not capital gain.
Correct. You will pay income tax. So it's going to depend on what your income is when you retire. Now, the inverse, go ahead. Do you want to do it with the TFSA?
No, I was just going to say for the RSP to add to that I understand, and you can correct me, that the government's theory on that was that when you're contributing to your RSP, which you would do every year because you're going to reduce your taxes, half of what you put in is a freebie.
Yeah.
In essence.
Yeah.
That your tax rate when you pull it out would be lower than your tax rate when you're putting it in.
That depends, right?
Well, that was the theory.
Yeah. And you're right. That is the theory. So what, as an individual, you have to think about is, are my taxes higher now or later? One simpler is, do I make more money now, or will I make more money later? And that's the part of the decisions. Because the tax-free savings account, I don't want to see your eyes glaze over. I'm concentrating on you, Kay. So I always look at her, she'll know. So tax-free savings account, you don't get that fun tax deduction when you go in. So you said you put your $100 in the account, you didn't get anything, right? I mean, you didn't get any kind of no break at the beginning. But here's the magic of a tax-free savings account. It grows and grows and grows over time. When you go to take that money out, you don't pay taxes on it. So no matter what your income is, that's when you don't pay tax. So at a very high level, if you're sophisticated, you want to think about this. You say, well, if I think my income is lower now, or is lower now, and I'm going to make more when I retire, so you save a ton, a tax-free savings account actually might be a better idea for you.
Okay, so I have a tax-free...
The hand went up.
The hand
yes.
went up. I have a tax-free savings account, but
yes.
I mean, you two are still way beyond
Got
me.
it, yeah.
Now you're telling me I've got to do something with the money.
Yeah.
So, so I go and apparently I have a tax-free savings account. Mm-hmm. So what do I do? Do I go to the bank? Do I say...
Yeah.
What are we doing with this money? Who do I talk to?
Got it. So is your tax-free savings account, is it with a bank?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's in a bank.
It's
and
with you guys.
Yeah, that's we like that. That's good. So what you would actually do then is, now do you do any managing your own investments online? Do you have a direct investing account?
No.
Nope. Good. Okay. So what you do is you go into the bank and you say, hey, I have a tax-free savings account, and I have a tax-free savings account, and what we need to do is I'd like you to give me some recommendations on where to put that money. The person is then going to talk to you and say, great, what they're going to talk to you about your goals, like what are you saving the money for, which we can get into, because there's a lot more flexibility with the tax-free savings account. We haven't even gone to that stuff, but I will. I know. I want to answer your question first. They'll just say, what is your goal for this money? You're going to say what your goal is, whether it's you want to use it in 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. And they'll say, great, here are your options. You can put it into a mutual fund. You can put it into a high-interest savings account, but put your money to work for you. And you can set it up so it's an automatic withdrawal from your account. It'll automatically go in there. It'll automatically go into your investments, whatever you chose.
So I could have, say, $50 or $100 a month or $25 a month go automatically from my checking account into my Tfsa, and so I sort of wouldn't miss it.
No,
hopefully.
That's actually the whole point. That's another thing. The joy of automatic deductions. Just if you take it away before it even really hits your account. Think about it, $25. That's 5 Starbucks coffees. That's 4 Starbucks coffees. But I mean, and if it goes away and you don't even see it, you're not going to miss it. But you're sure going to notice it after a few years, after it's been put to work in a fund or in a whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be earning interest over time. That's exactly what you should be doing.
Okay, and I can just do that by walking up to a teller.
Just go to a bank and say, I have a Tfsa. I'd like you to tell me some recommendations on how I should use that money.
Okay.
And you could buy anything. You could buy guaranteed investment certificates. You could buy stocks. You could buy a little piece of a mutual fund.
You can buy options. I mean, you can do anything.
I mean, depending on how on what you want to do or what, and talk to somebody there.
And what did you say the limit was you were allowed to put
$5,500 a year.
And you're talking about the government before you were saying, see, now I'm caught up.
Mm.
You were talking about saying that the government is upping the limits.
They're trying to, they seem to be trying, because they started with 5.
They started with 5, yeah. I think it was in 2009. So 2009, 2010 to 2012, $5,000 a year if you were 18 years or older. Then they upped it to $5,500.
And the hope would be at some point that they might keep doing that. So the other thing...
They're trying to keep pace with inflation.
Exactly. Really. The other thing, Kim, is tell people that actually who may not have known this and may not have put anything in.
Oh, you can catch up.
You've got you can go on to a website, I think, can't you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a simple calculation. I mean, you will know, have I put money in my Tfsa? And if you haven't, you can catch up to all that time. So if you've put in $100 up until today, you can put in almost, I would say, $30,900 in there. You've got room.
I'd have to have it.
Ask her. She's a good investor. She may have.
You can go back to what year? You
can go back to the beginning.
Yeah, to 2009. So the point is every person in Canada who's over 18 has accumulated this room. Right. So you haven't, if you didn't do it then, that's okay. Just go back and say, so you can contribute $6,000 this year and maybe $8,000 another year until you catch up.
Until you catch up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All I know is that when I got my tax assessment, there was a website listed on it saying, here, check your
Tfsa
your limit, your room, what's left in there. So you can check what you have, and if you haven't contributed, it'll tell you to the dollar what you can put in. So you can walk into the bank with that and say, hey, this is what I can put in, and I'd like to put it in and get it working. Because, capital gains over a lot of years, that's a big savings.
It is. It's very, very efficient in terms of if you make some wise investments in your Tfsa, that's outstanding. Now, one thing we haven't talked about yet, I mean, because I actually really believe a lot in what I call behavior-based finance. So, for example, if you've got, let's back up one second. What is the money for? I'm saying for retirement. So depending on your tax dollars and your tax levels and those kinds of things too. If you're saving perhaps for something in your retirement, or perhaps you want to get at the money a little sooner, something happens. You have an emergency.
A rainy day.
A rainy day. Yes. So here's the one of the differences. The RRSP is structured to be a retirement fund. It is not structured for an in and out. No. So when you put your money in your RRSP and something happens, a rainy day happens, you pull it out, you lose that room forever. It's gone. You can't put that money back. It's done.
Right.
The TFSA, as I mentioned, you can take the money out. You have to wait till the next calendar year, but you can put it back in. You don't lose the contribution room. So it's much more flexible to get money in and out.
And you never pay tax on that money?
You don't pay tax on the accumulation of it. So here's the thing. You've paid tax on it already.
Because of the after-tax dollars that are going in.
Exactly. You've paid tax already. So you've paid your tax. It's going in. I know. You're going to be telling me soon what I should be doing, which is,
doubtful. Okay.
So you've paid your tax. It's going in. It grows tax-free, and then you don't pay tax when it comes out. But then you can come in and out. Now, the good thing is that it's flexible. So if it's meant for a rainy day fund, and that's fabulous. The bad thing I would say for retirement savings is it's flexible. If you've got sticky fingers and you find you have a lot of rainy days, then you may not want to put it in a TFSA. You may want something a little more structured to kind of say it needs to be over here. And that's where I think, it's important to know yourself, and it's important to know what your actual objectives are.
Well, this is why you said at the beginning that you're in favor of both.
Yeah. There's not a wrong one. I mean, here's the ideal. Max out your RSP and then put more money in your TFSA. I mean, then you're off to the races.
Does it make a difference depending how old you are? Like, say you're just out of university or 18, when you can start investing. Where should you begin?
Well, you can start investing when you're younger, if someone is so inclined. So, but you have to have income to open an RSP.
Okay.
So that's the thing. You have to be earning something, because an RSP is a percentage of what you earned last year. So you have income, you can go ahead and do something with an RSP. You can't do anything with a TFSA until you're 18 years old. So just very simply, once you're 18, that accumulates. It's not dependent on income. You can make nothing. Absolutely nothing. So if you've got a generous grandparent, parent, brother, friend, who's going to give you a gift of something, you can open up a TFSA and put it there. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, if you're 71 years old, you actually need to wind up your RRSP. So an RRSP is a vehicle for saving up until you're 71. At that point, there's a few things that can happen, but most commonly it converts into a RIF, a Registered Retirement Income Fund, of which you start drawing income from. There's other options as well, which itself I think is an entirely other show. But after 71, if you're still saving, and you know what, there's a lot of very active, my parents included, 71-year-olds out there who are doing things and still saving, a TFSA is until you're, 200, 300. I mean, there's no rate. You will have accumulated a lot of room by then, too.
And for the RSP, maybe you're not contributing up until 71,
no.
But it can still be compounding and growing if you don't need to take anything out.
Yeah.
And then it just turns around, and instead of money going in, the money starts coming out.
I was just going to say, I think actually Einstein called compounding the eighth wonder of the world. Just to give you, because I think sometimes
I love compound
interest. It is. You want it when it works for you. You don't want it when it's the other way around. But I mean, it's one of these things. Sometimes I just sit there and that is the most important thing. If anyone can get anything, just do something. Get money working for you. That is the most important thing.
I don't think people understand that. Just a little bit of money. On a regular basis, they think, $100 a month, that's not a lot. But if you started at 21 doing $100 a month, can you imagine at 65?
Yeah.
I mean, it's astounding what compounding does.
And that's the power, too, for a lot of people. And it's tough, right? When you're younger, it's very hard to be thinking about when you're 60, when you're 65. But the magic happens early, right? So if you can be responsible and teach your kids about the importance of saving and doing things, it's so much easier for someone who starts saving from their 20s to be ready by the time they're 40 than if you start when you're 35. I mean, just even if it's a little money, it works so well for you up into those first 15 years.
Well, it's the same thing with interest. I mean, if you can bring your interest rate down even a couple of percent, it's compounding negatively.
Yeah.
Therefore, you're paying less. So
Yeah.
it's really amazing if you look at some charts.
Yeah.
You can go online and look
Oh,
at
yeah,
charts.
right. So exciting.
No,
I'm going to
I
go
think
online,
we've almost
Christine, and look
converted
at
her.
charts.
We've almost converted her.
Almost converted her.
I know. Trying to get her to the other side.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, if you're somebody out there and you haven't sort of gotten into the idea of an RSP or saving, just go and look at an interest chart and see
Mhm.
what, you think, $100, like look at what that will do over 30 years,
Yeah.
and that will be enough to convince you and make a convert.
Well, I'll agree with that, because it did when we were saving as soon as our children were born.
Yeah.
Every month we put money in.
And the RESP, the government kicks in 20%.
They kicked in, and universities covered.
Yeah, and you never, ever, ever say no to free money. If someone is offering to match something you're doing for 20%, I mean, it's awfully hard to find an investment that will guarantee 20%. That just doesn't happen. So you should take that and put that money in right away. I mean, it's the other thing I was going to say too. Just for when you mentioned kind of like what should I do with the TFSA, I can't emphasize enough. I made a career of it before I joined TD, of asking dumb questions. Just go in and ask, how does this work? What do I do? How do I do this? And I think sometimes, not just women, but people are scared of asking questions, and you gotta ask.
So, I mean, with this TFSA, I mean, another thing would be like, well, I'm going to go to the bank and I'm going to talk to them about what I should do with it, and then are they going to try and sell me other stuff? And it's like, I just want to deal with this. And I like the idea that you suggested of having, $25 or whatever, an automatic deduction go in, because then it's there. But how do I then start determining, like,
contain the conversation?
Well, contain the conversation, one, but two, I mean, what are the best vehicles for me at my age, sort of, to have that money working for me?
I can speak for TD in terms of what they do, and generally they'll bring you in to talk to a financial planner.
Right.
The planner will sit and talk to you and say, well, how old are you? What are your goals? I mean, they're not going to put you into or recommend vehicles for you that are not appropriate for your age and appropriate for your goals. So there are a lot of different vehicles out there, Christina. There's just everything you can imagine. But I think if you're just clear with them and say, here's the outcome I want. You don't have to understand all the vehicles, but here is the outcome I want. I'm very clear with you. This is the outcome. This is how much I have. This is where I want to be. They will help you do that. You don't need to have all the answers to go in. You just need to know what you want your outcome to be.
Are they going to laugh at me if I go in and say, I only want to put in $25 a month?
Absolutely
Is that too little
not.
for people to deal with?
No, not at all. And I mean, I think the thing is, what you're going in. You're not just putting in $25 a month. You're putting in $25, a month, a year, ongoing until whenever. So I mean, that's significant, and that builds up. Absolutely, no, you would never. And I think if anyone got laughed at an institution, they should walk out the door.
Well, I think that is one of the things that a lot of women. It's like, I can't afford to do it right now. I'm living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
But maybe if you pointed out, it's like a coffee. Cut down. 2 coffees, 3 coffees a week.
Yeah.
That maybe you could take that money, but people think, well, that's too little for a bank to take the time to deal with me.
I mean, a lot of people bank online too, and there's ways to
Right.
go online and just make these transactions. Pick up a phone. You can probably get this done in probably 5 minutes on the phone when you call the bank to do it. It doesn't take much. And I think a different topic as well. I remember talking about mortgages. If you decided you were going to pay your mortgage once a month, as many people do, if you move to bi-weekly, just increasing the frequency, which is what you're doing. I mean, you shave off sometimes, in some cases, 6 to 7 years of paying your mortgage off.
Compounding
Exactly.
interest in reverse.
Exactly. So, I mean, little bits matter, and it's really important that you pay yourself first, and that's what you're doing. When you go through this situation, it's a cliche, but, and it's not just enough to talk about it. I'm a really big believer as well as putting structures in place. If, I have some issues sometimes going to a gym, don't love doing it, I hire a personal trainer to actually make sure I go. Well, to me, automatic withdrawals an account is the version of a personal trainer. I don't have to do anything. It just happens, therefore I know it will happen.
Now, would you give drastically different advice to a 30-year-old and to a 50 or 60-year-old?
I think I would say this stuff are kind of broad parameters for people.
Right.
So I think, when it comes down to individual advice, I'm going to defer and say you need to talk to someone who understands your situation more. But, when it comes to RSPs and TFSAs, I mean, those same things I were talking about in terms of, if you're making, if you don't have a lot of, RRSP room, or excuse me, if you have a lot of RRSP room now, you may want to do that. If you're older, it just, and I'm jumping in here, it just really depends on the person in terms of what you're doing. So, I mean, it depends on what your outcome, what your goals are, all that kind of thing.
Well, I'm just thinking, too, many people might think, well, I'm already 40, and it's kind of late.
But guess what? It's going to be later when you're 45.
True.
You know, I mean, so, you know, I would say the same thing for exercise. Would you say, well, it's kind of late now? Well, you got to start sometime. And, you know,
Do
you know,
I
yeah,
really do.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you the number of a personal trainer. So. But, you know, it's also, too, but find out things that work for you. I mean, don't sign up for a program that you're not going to do. If you don't like talking about money, like really, if you don't like doing it, find out what you need to know, and then find a partner, you know, a planner at a bank, or you know, there's lots of things that works for you. And just, you know, again, just understand, because you may not like talking about money, but you probably want to have a great, relaxing, stress-free retirement. Right. So just you need to know what you need to do to make that happen.
Right.
So
I'm
hand it off to somebody else.
If you want to, or
Yes.
if you love it, which you do. I mean, you're fairly incredible in terms of what you've done and how you structure things. I mean, you're a very savvy investor. You like doing it.
Well, I became savvy because I had a father who had a stroke, and so I had power of attorney.
Yeah.
So I was kind of forced to become literate.
Yeah.
And now I can't go back.
Yeah.
I mean, now I'm pretty.
Now you know.
Now I'm financially pretty literate because
Yeah.
I had to deal with all this stuff to look out for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I am.
And a lot of women are in very similar situations. I mean, you know, a lot of women who are, you know, newly divorced or are widowed and haven't had a chance to really be hands-on. I mean, they're involved in the money, but not in the investment decisions sometimes. They're in that situation too. But again, I think it's important to find the structure that works for you. It's not about everybody has to get online and start trading options.
Click the channel subscribe button for full-length interviews and more from What She Said here on YouTube.